Hey, ever been in a tight spot during a game, wishing you had just one more card in your hand to turn the tide? Or maybe you've seen someone with a seemingly endless supply of cards, leaving you wondering, is there even a limit to this? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. How many cards can an ally hold? Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, it's crucial to understand that ally isn't a universal term in the world of card games. It pops up in various forms, with slightly different meanings and, most importantly for our question, different rules regarding how many cards they can interact with or hold. We're not talking about your best gaming buddy here, though having one of those is definitely an advantage. Think about games like Magic: The Gathering. In this incredibly popular trading card game, ally refers to a specific creature subtype. These allies often have abilities that trigger or benefit from other allies entering the battlefield. However, in Magic, creatures on the battlefield don't technically hold cards in the same way a player does in their hand. They have their own stats, abilities, and can be affected by spells and other abilities. So, if we're thinking about allies in Magic, the question of how many cards they can hold doesn't really apply. They are the cards, in a sense, once they're in play. A player, on the other hand, has a hand of cards, and the rules dictate how many cards you can draw, discard, and generally hold at different phases of the game. Then you have games like the Lord of the Rings trading card game, TCG, by Decipher. In this system, allies were characters who aided the free peoples in their quest. These allies were represented by cards played onto the table. Again, these ally cards themselves don't hold other cards. They have their own attributes and text that define their role in the game. Players, however, have a hand of cards that they manage and play. Moving into the realm of cooperative card games, we find titles like Arkham Horror, the card game. Here, allies are asset cards that investigators can acquire and use. These allies provide various benefits, such as extra actions, stat boosts, or the ability to soak up damage. While these ally cards are held in the sense that they are in play and under an investigator's control, they don't typically hold other cards. The investigator's hand is where the card holding happens. The rules for Arkham Horror dictate hand size limits and how many assets, including allies, an investigator can have in play simultaneously. Even in digital card games like Hearthstone, which features minions that could be considered analogous to allies in other games, the concept of a minion holding cards isn't a game mechanic. Minions have attack, health, and sometimes special abilities, but they don't interact with a hand of cards. The player controls their own hand and plays cards, including minions, onto their side of the board. So, why the confusion? Well, the term ally carries a general connotation of a supporting character or element within a game. This might lead one to imagine them as having some capacity to hold or utilize other cards. However, in most established card games, the mechanics are structured differently. The players are the ones who hold and manage a hand of cards, which they then use to play other cards, including those representing allies or support characters, onto the playing field. These played cards then have their own rules and limitations. It seems the question might stem from a misunderstanding of the role of allies within the context of various card games. Perhaps you're thinking of a scenario where an ally character in a game could be equipped with items, represented by cards, or have a retinue of followers, also represented by cards. While some games do feature mechanics like this, the terminology and rules vary significantly. For instance, in some role-playing card games or even certain board games with card elements, you might have a central character who can have attachments or equipment represented by cards. These attached cards modify the character's abilities or provide new ones. In such cases, the central character card could be seen as holding or being associated with these other cards. However, the base number of attachment slots or equipment slots is usually defined by the rules of the game or the specific character card itself, not by a general rule for all allies. Let's consider a hypothetical scenario to further illustrate this. Imagine a fantasy card game where you play a hero, and you can recruit allies to join your party. Each ally is represented by a card on the table. Now, let's say there are also item cards that can be given to your hero or your allies to enhance their abilities. In this case, an ally card could have item cards attached to it, representing them wielding weapons or wearing armor. The rules of this hypothetical game would then dictate how many item cards each ally could have attached to them. It might be a fixed number, like 1 or 2, or it could depend on the specific ally card or the type of item. This idea of one card being equipped or having other cards associated with it is not uncommon in card games, but it's usually tied to specific mechanics and terminology rather than a general rule about allies. To really nail down an answer to your question, we need to consider the specific game you're thinking about. Without that context, we can only talk in general terms about how different games represent support characters or elements and how they interact with other cards. It's also possible that the term ally is being used in a more informal or homebrewed game context. If you're playing a game with your friends that isn't based on a published system, the rules for how many cards an ally can hold would be entirely up to your group to decide. You could create a system where allies have inventory slots or can carry a certain number of item cards. So, to summarize our exploration so far, the term ally has different meanings across various card games. In many popular TCGs like Magic, The Gathering and the Lord of the Rings TCG, ally cards, or similar creature/character cards, don't typically hold other cards, they are cards and play themselves. Cooperative card games like Arkham Horror, the card game, feature ally assets, but these don't usually hold other cards, the investigators do. Some games might feature mechanics where cards can be attached to or associated with other cards, like equipment, but this is usually governed by specific rules and not a general rule for all allies. Given this, it's likely that there isn't a universal answer to the question of how many cards an ally can hold. The answer depends entirely on the specific game and how its rules define allies and their interactions with other cards. If you have a particular game in mind when you ask this question, providing that information would allow for a much more specific and accurate answer. We could then delve into the rulebook of that game and see exactly what it says about allies and their capacity to interact with or hold other cards. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.